Well, again, thank you very much. We're going to dive right in here because we don't have very much time, 30 minutes. And it's kind of funny because that's really been a theme of this whole project. We really haven't had much time. And a real lesson learned when it comes to rebranding, that sometimes a large amount of time actually can serve to be your enemy when you're under the clock and you have really high expectations and can just pivot your thinking in terms of how you work and how you tackle the challenge. You can see the outcome on the other side much more quickly.
You can tell who's the client, who's the agency.
Yes, exactly. But we had an opportunity over last year to shape an entirely new organization. And our intention is to really transform revenue cycle operations for hospitals and health systems, particularly focused in the United States. We have bridged together several legacy organizations that each have their own thought leadership, each have their areas of specialty, but not lost sight of this value proposition opportunity that we've identified in the marketplace for truly end-to-end solutions. So today, healthcare providers have to go to anywhere from 7 to 34 different revenue cycle vendors to fill their needs, to complement their electronic medical records, to help them all the way from registration and patient access through timely and appropriate collections of their bills, of their claims, and everything that's in between. And what's in between is incredibly messy, but a successful bottom line is truly dependent on everything that occurs through that entire patient encounter, patient experience. We believe philosophically that the pressure and need is only increasing in an environment of value-based care, in an environment where consumers have much more opportunity to choose what provider delivers care to them. So am I going to go to your healthcare organization or your healthcare organization? Because it very much might come down to what that experience was like when you booked your appointment, or when you did or didn't have transparency into how much of that medical bill that you had to pay. So that's really what nThrive is about. It's this next generation company in a very competitive and very mucky, messy environment. We don't have 3 competitors, we have 43 competitors, if not more, throughout this entire space. So 3 newly acquired brands came together in 2016, and better yet, we really drew a line in the sand, and we said that we did not want to miss the opportunity to unveil our new brand and tell our story at HFMA's Annual National Institute, June 26, 2016, that date that will forever be ingrained in our brains, at least. And to do that, it meant that we would have 4 months to rebrand a company. That was compounded by the fact that our organization was just coming together and nThrive was just being built. We were just settling in on our executive team. We were just settling in on roles and responsibilities, areas of functional ownership. We were just understanding what was important to, at that time, our 3,200 or so colleagues in terms of culture and value and belief system. We had a new chief executive officer coming in. So you can imagine the complexity, the swirl, the challenges. But the opportunity for us was just to stay completely focused with this clarity that we were going to do this within 4 months. We knew that we were not going to be able to do everything. So we had to decide what is it that we will do so that we really make a big splash and a big impact. So we talked a little bit about this. Providers are outsourcing their payment processes, and Matt's going to talk a little bit more about this messaging in a couple of minutes, but this is that philosophy where we are seeing a real trend in the marketplace, and we are already experiencing traction from a sales standpoint that providers are coming to us to have that end-to-end organization that can integrate their entire revenue cycle and truly be held accountable as a partner, as opposed to what they're used to in the past, things slipping through the cracks, no one throat to choke, no one back to pat, and really a slippage of opportunity when it comes to their net revenue performance within the healthcare organization. So MedAssets and Precise were acquired by a private equity company called Pamplona Capital Management. Precise was acquired in 2015 in the summertime. MedAssets was acquired right around November 2015. MedAssets, if you're familiar at all with that legacy organization, it was really two companies in one. A GPO, group purchasing organization, exactly, and this revenue cycle services and technology and consulting organization. We spun off the GPO. Our belief is that we will be beginning to end revenue cycle management and only revenue cycle management. We will focus on this area of specialization. We sold the GPO, that is a part of Vizient now, and we needed to do something in the meantime, so we called ourselves MedAssets Precise, created that interim brand, and about 7 weeks or so before our rebranding launch, we acquired a company called Equation Health. They are based in Utah, just outside of Salt Lake City, and they are an analytics organization. So as part of our value proposition, we know that we need to grow our analytics opportunities. Acquired Equation. Now, the situation today, we've actually completed 2 additional acquisitions and are in the process of merging in 2 other organizations. Adrema Health, which is patient financial responsibility, much more of the patient-centered revenue cycle approach on the front end, as well as an organization called E4E, which is an India-based outsourcing organization. And so that gives us a captive offshoring presence so that we are able to supplement our service delivery with offshore talent when we are not able to fulfill the talent requirements for our clients onshore. So we can afford that level of flexibility. So it's actually 5 organizations now. We partnered with Aloft.
Yay!
Yay! And it was really most important that we had this clear vision of our organization and develop something called VMVA, Vision, Mission, Values, and Approach. You know, I think a lot of times when we have the career opportunities to do a rebranding project, we get really focused on the brand, on the creative, on the name, on the color palette, on the deliverables, and lose some of the fundamentals. And one of the things that was really refreshing about working with Aloft was our philosophical alignment that this just had to start at the most fundamental, foundational level, which was around our vision and our mission. We extend that to something called values and approach, and that's where we get the VMVA acronym. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. And we just made it our principle to stay on track and stay focused. So the A in our VMVA stands for approach. Our approach at nThrive, we call it FUNA. And if somebody does a great job and they do it really quickly and they completely, blow you away, you're like, FUNA. That was so FUNA. We say this. This is a word. This is a congratulatory word of praise in our company vocabulary. And it means focused, united, nimble, and accountable. And, in retrospect, Matt and I look at the brand effort that we went through in 4 months, and we kind of cast it against this FUNA approach of nThrive. And it really is a mindset that can allow what can often be very hard to tame branding projects to be much more manageable if you take this FUNA discipline. Matt, I think I'm handing it to you.
Yeah, so that's, thanks, Kristen, that's like the overdrop of the background of the company and whatnot. So let's get into what actually happened then. So philosophically, and it's been interesting listening to some of the sessions that when people are talking about brand, as Kristen said, oftentimes brand gets kind of positioned into this thing that really becomes just kind of at the surface. It doesn't actually get down to what the company is all about. So this is the approach that we took. So I think you guys can probably relate to a lot of this. Is it often gets really confusing about what brand strategy even means and where brand strategy fits into the organization. We find that time and time again. So this is probably going to look familiar to you, a lot of you. A lot of people have an organizational structure, and then coming off the organizational structure, you may have a finance strategy, a technology strategy, a sales strategy, a marketing strategy. And what happens, we're all marketing people, right? Where does brand get stuck? Brand gets tucked over into the marketing department. And what happens is it becomes brand and brand strategy becomes a marketing exercise, but we know that that can't work. I mean, we're marketing people, I'm sorry, I'm a marketing person, but it's got to go way beyond that. So we know the reality of it is that the brand's got, is that a cool transition? The brand, really proud of that. The brand's got to encompass everything, right? And so what that means is this is actually a leadership team exercise. It's not just a marketing driven thing. So how does this fit in together then? And this goes exactly what Kristen was saying is, we call this directing and driving in terms of how do all the strategies fit together in an organization. So at the top, you got the corporate vision, right? You have to start with the corporate vision, and oftentimes with the brand strategy, you have to go back and redo your corporate vision. That directs the brand strategy and the corporate and financial strategy. That in turn directs the marketing and all the other sales strategy, which in turn, when you put them all together, drives everything on top. I'm showing this just because we just find time and time again that it's really confused about where brand strategy should fit into the organization. I think this is a helpful way of looking at it. Any of you guys have ever been involved with brand? You see these Venn diagrams, and what do they teach you in business school is always go to the middle right of a Venn diagram. So there's only 3 components of doing this process, and you're going to see how these components played out. There's what the market wants, there's what the competition and the capabilities do, and then there's our own internal. But the problem is everybody tends to go into that middle when they're trying to do their positioning and their differentiation. And as a result of that, we just refer to it as the brand muck. You can see why that's a problem is you're sharing your positioning with your competition when you do this. And this is why so many companies sound the same over and over and over again. Obviously, the place you want to be is over here in this sweet spot, and that's a really hard place to get to. So when Kristen was talking about earlier about the VMVA, this is the place that we started with the vision, the mission, the values, and the approach. And this was all done like the vision. Just as a funny, the first time the leadership team got together, it was in Charlotte. They had not even actually been in the room together before. These were all brand new people, and we led a vision workshop. They were literally like introducing each other at the very first vision workshop. That was almost exactly a year ago today, and this was launching in June, so you can see how tight this is happening. So the objective here is it had to have a brand new name. We knew that the legacy names weren't going to work. It had to have a new brand architecture. This was putting together a whole portfolio. When you do a brand, you have a portfolio of stuff, and that stuff has to tell a story. And we really wanted to carve out a unique space in the market. So this is how this played out. All good, you guys know this, all good branding efforts, all good strategy efforts have to be based on a lot of research. And not just research just to tell you what you want to hear and support an idea you've already got, but actual research that models it. And so in this particular case, there were 18 competitive audits. And so when we talk about competitive audits, to us, we don't get into like pricing and things like that. That's not what we're auditing. We're getting into how do they position themselves. What's their brand about? So we can avoid that. The last thing you want to do is position yourself like a competition. A lot of customer interviews, internal full staff surveys, 31 stakeholder interviews, internal focus groups. So a lot of research goes into this. And in addition to it also providing good insight, on the backside, it gives you good buy-in because everybody actually felt like they participated in this process.
How quickly did you turn that process?
What was that?
The research?
Yeah.
With all those, how long did that take you guys with such a short amount of time?
This happened. We accomplished all of this in about a 4-week period. It normally happens in about 6-8 weeks.
Familiar, so that's why I'm asking how. That's impressive.
It was an all hands on deck type of a thing, and we were simultaneously doing every little piece of it.
And you can't have that approach if the effort is not led from the top.
Yeah.
So, we didn't have a brand manager leading the effort. I'm the chief marketing officer of the organization. I led the effort. I sponsored this on our executive team for our chief executive officer. We used our standing weekly executive leadership team calls as checkpoints with the Aloft group to get alignment and buy-in across every functional and business area of the organization. We met roughly every Friday and Monday. At the beginning of the call, Matt and I would outline, here's the expectations for the next 35 minutes. We're going to review this, and this is the 3 things we need you to agree to or disagree to, and then we'll come up with a contingency plan. And we would then take 35 minutes and plow through it and literally check through those priority items. If you don't have that alignment and unification and focus from an executive leadership team, this project doesn't happen in 4 months.
And we all know that the hardest part of the research is talking to your customers, talking to the people in the field. That is a tough process
Absolutely.
to get done. I mean, in a perfect world, it's a tough prospect. In this case, it was, like Kristen said at the beginning, sometimes a shortness of time actually works to your advantage because you can't sit and overthink things. So when we got to, after we did all the research, we were really looking for a muse, like to really help us like design the brand around. And we like the idea of like starting at a place where, you know, you're looking at a what was and what could be type of a situation. And so what we were thinking about was when we are going to be inspired by creating a new name. So anybody been through a naming project? It's frickin' torture, isn't it? Because you know why? The biggest problem now is that you're also looking for the URL. And you don't want to end up with some stupid ass URL that doesn't align with the name, right? Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, the world of naming has gotten flicked. Mm-hmm. So in our case, in this particular one, we looked at, this is Times Square in 1978. Can you believe that? This is Times Square. So we were thinking about, you know, that our healthcare system is really whacked up. And when it comes to the billing side of things, it's even more whacked up. And so we were thinking about, we want to take something like 1978 Times Square and turned it into what it could be. This is Times Square today. Isn't that amazing? The transition that it's gone. And so we use this as kind of our inspiration. And when we were selling all this process through to all the thousands of employees, we use these same types of visuals so they could understand the company that they're working for. So that's how we came up with the name Thrive. So what does Thrive mean? It's the power to thrive, to grow and develop successfully, to flourish and succeed to the nth degree. So you know what thrive means. And so the N part, we got to the nth. So that stands for nth. And so what does nth mean? N equals colleagues, clients, and community. So really thriving the colleagues, that's their term
we
for
call,
the
instead
employees.
of staff or employees,
Yeah.
we call everyone colleagues. That's a kind of cultural thing.
Helping the communities thrive and helping their clients thrive. So that's the foundation of the name. Of course, there's a new visual identity, and all these things mean something as most brands do. But this is the part that's interesting. So after you do the naming part, you end up with a portfolio of services and products, right? And sometimes the brand kind of quits there. But that's the best part of the process is when, and this is their structure. So they had 5, we refer to them as swim lanes, but they had 5 areas that they focus on: technology, services, consulting, analytics, education. This probably looks familiar because most companies have some type of a structure like that. But what we disliked about this very strongly is what a boring story that tells. Hey, we have technology, we have services, I mean, it just doesn't tell a very good story.
And it also doesn't elevate us out of that siloed approach that the provider community is used to. They're used to working with all of these different vendors. So it kind of put us right back where we started. And so reinventing in this way, it just lets us tell a much more meaningful story.
Exactly. And this is where we ended up then. So this is what they were, this is what they became. So technology became unified because that's what the technology does. It brings things together. Its services became perform, consulting and advise, analyze, and sustain. And so the nice thing about that is now the portfolio itself tells this really great story. We unify clinical and financial objectives, advise and drive performance with leading practices and analysis, and ensure sustainable change. So we were able to actually take the portfolio itself and tell the new story of what Thrive meant instead of just saying, here's a laundry list of products that we do. Because that's the one thing we wanted to stay away from was those bulleted list of all the things you offer that everybody does, We wanted to stay away from that. So the heart of every brand is differentiation, right? And everybody gives this a lot of lip service. You have to differentiate. The one thing nobody ever talks about is how do you differentiate? How do you actually do that? Because it's hard. And so, I guess about 8 years ago, we partnered up with the University of Surrey in London, a fantastic university in London, outside of London, that because we wanted to do a study about what makes some brands really successful and other brands not. Even if there's a good product or service behind the brand, why do some brands just fail? There's a whole lot of factors that go into that. But the one thing we found consistently that the university found consistently over and over again, The brands that actually truly figure out 1 to 3 points of differentiation or points of distinction, whatever, are the brands that really rock it and the ones that really grow. So how do you actually get to these points of distinction? That's a whole different topic that we could talk about forever. It'd probably be a good topic for the show. But that's where we started with these guys as well in the differentiation. So remember that we used the term, and at the core of theirs was there was that term of end-to-end revenue cycle. So the space that we knew we were competing in is this end-to-end revenue cycle. That just doesn't sound very good. There's nothing interesting about end-to-end revenue cycle. So we thought if we want to own this space, we need to rename it because end-to-end is just a generic term. Everybody's using this concept of end-to-end something. So we renamed it. So on one side, as Kristen was saying, you've got patient access. On the other side, you've got money coming in to pay for the services. And in the middle, you have information management, HIMSS, and you have RCM. And all that ties together to how providers get paid. So what we did, we merged these two together to represent the end-to-end. It came up with this idea of patient to payment as what do we do? So what does InThrive do? Well, we do patient to payment. And so we coined a new term, and now we can own that term. And it became the foundation of the brand. Mm-hmm. A key part of any good branding opportunity is this idea of creating a brand manifesto. And a brand manifesto is just how do you take all the practical things that you've done to design the brand and turn it into this really nice emotional thing that everybody can get in. And we have I'm certainly not going to read that to you, but we have a very short video here that was used to launch the brand internally. And the voiceover that you hear is the CEO of the company, and he's actually reading the brand manifesto.
We believe everyone in every community deserves to know that their health and their lives are in capable, caring hands. We believe in the power of it, the humanity of it. We believe it's the backbone that makes our lives richer and our communities stronger. But for healthcare to advance, it must have a healthy infrastructure supporting it. And while science will continue to advance medicine, it cannot act alone. It takes the right people and technology to build that foundation from which medicine will be delivered. And it takes unwavering passion to sustain it. This is what drives us. It is our mission to make sure that healthcare providers and communities thrive. Because when they have the resources to stay ahead of the rapid pace of change, there is no limit to the meaningful impact they can have on our communities. When our healthcare providers are healthy and productive, our world is too.
So you can kind of see the purpose of that was very much an internal thing. And this goes back to the beginning of this story where there were 3 different companies. Not everybody was happy about 3 companies coming together. We know you have different cultures coming together. There's a lot of friction. The idea here was that we knew we wanted to use the brand as the thing, the driving force that pulled everybody together and work at a company that you're proud of. Mm-hmm. You heard Kristen pitching this company. She spent more time pitching the company to you guys who had no intention of ever buying a product. But that's the reality of this, like the brand and building these emotional connections behind it.
Oh, well, you know,
Go
some
ahead.
of the
This is some of the launch
work.
stuff.
Yeah, this was our launch at ANI actually, and it was cool. It was wonderful. Our booth there, some collateral. We should just tick through here. full page advertisement, trade show booth, launch website. We're actually on our third website. We did it in stages because we knew we could not stand up a fully comprehensive lead generating site in time. So we did a brand site. This is our employer campaign, which was its own branding effort the last 3 months or so. But it really was so seamless because we had such a great platform to build it from the corporate brand. So a couple quick takeaways in the minutes left. Brand strategy transcends the marketing department and it needs to be top down. I think we've stressed that enough. It has to be led and spearheaded from the top.
Do as much research as you can in this process, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of subjectivity that happens in this process, especially when you get to like logos and colors and stuff like that. The more research you can do, you can attempt to remove some of the subjectivity as much as you can.
Build an emotional connection. I think you see with the creative, with the storytelling, with some of the language that we're using, this is all about the heart. It's all about community. It's all about health care. And I think that is what has helped us shape something that's strong and is resonating.
So when it comes to brand strategy, if you can't replace the word business and put that into the word brand, then your brand strategy isn't going deep enough. Because the brand strategy, it really is at the core of your business strategy. Those two ideas and thoughts need to be interchangeable.
And then finally, the motto that was assigned to me during this project, unreasonable but doable. This is what the Aloft group calls me. I'm sure they've called me other select things as well in the last year. But it works. It works. Just really pushing the envelope and challenging yourselves to consolidate timelines, stay incredibly focused, make sure the right stakeholders are participating in the effort. Unreasonable is actually doable.
Oh, wow. So we have 1 minute left. So questions or anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Were there any blogs or podcasts or websites or anything that you got inspiration from during the rebranding process that you would recommend?
We didn't have time to listen to podcasts. Are you kidding?
Maybe not podcasts, but
No, I'll tell you,
that's
I
funny.
think one of the things that inspired us the most was how we conducted the visioning session with the executive team. We had every member of the executive team go around the room and speak for about 5 minutes about why they were there, why they were joining this company, or why they were accepting the position that was being offered to them, and the impact that they believed we would be able to make on healthcare.
Yeah.
And it was truly a, hair standing on your arms and the back of your neck moment to listen to a room of C-level executives genuinely speak from their heart about why we're doing this and the challenges and the opportunities that are ahead of us. I think that was our biggest inspiration for the brand.
Yep.
What did you do for colleagues to integrate them after it was done? Do they have hats, shirts? How did you bring them?
Yeah, we did a launch. We've got laptop clings. Everybody received a couple nice collateral pieces. We did, Brenda could probably tell you because L&R supports all of our printing work, but we did these really fun trifold business cards, and everybody has a little VMVA and Thrive brand that kind of takes you through all of the little messaging, a really beautiful flyer that they all received. They've got little brand clings and awards that they can receive. We also use Pressly. I don't know if any of you use Pressly. It is something that is embedded in our website for public relations. Essentially works as a news feed. We use it as our external news feed. We extended our relationship with Pressly because we found as we were bringing these companies together, we do not yet have all of our colleagues on one unified email platform. So not everybody's on Office 365. Our corporate intranet is built off of SharePoint. How would we communicate in a really nice, enriching, engaged, two-way engagement fashion? So we spoke with Pressly about this, and they said, we've really been wanting to pilot internal communications, so we'll give it a try with you. So we stood up a Pressly hub for our colleagues. And on day one of becoming an nThrive colleague, simply by providing the email address to Pressly, you get a link to register, and you receive our email communications. We push them out every single Wednesday, and we have a variety of sections in there. So it takes you directly to our nThrive Hub site, which essentially is a light intranet, but we do pushes weekly, and it includes so much information. But that really has been instrumental in getting everybody integrated and getting our colleagues to really be one body. We've doubled in size. We now have 6,200 colleagues around the globe.
You know, the tricky part of that is, when you guys evolved in the situation when somebody says, so tell me about your company, and everybody's squirming around because trying to actually talk about the company in a way and describe the company in a consistent way is always a challenge, right? And so that's been really a key driver. So when everybody says, so tell me about it and Thrive, they actually have the tools to be able to answer it in a way that's actually pretty uniform. So.
Do you have an elevator pitch as a part of your branding sheet?
We do. So it's actually, so the key components of like this branding sheet are, what are the points of distinction? Why are we different? And how do you tie that together into one easy statement? And we have two levels of that. You saw one of them here, which was the portfolio, which talked about how do we talk about our portfolio. But sitting on top of that is a higher level statement that brings it all together and talks about what the points of distinction are. So that's a really critical piece. So
everybody that's on your sales team knows what that is.
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah, we made it a part of their curriculum for their value selling framework that they've been trained on over this last year. We provided them with trifold brochures that take you through that messaging, plus the points of distinction, and then points of evidence that they could speak to as sound bites. We made sure that we created a really nice package for them when they got to our first annual Thrive National Sales and Leadership Summit. So they had all these nice resources in their room and could ask questions throughout the course of the week.
Any more? I think we're over time here. So any last questions?
Were you given a budget, or did you go to the vision and say, I need this amount of money to be able to do it?
Yeah, I want to hear this. I want to hear how you answer this.
Yeah.
Was there a budget involved?
There was a budget involved. I created a high, medium, and low budget. And they are incredibly modest budgets, I will say, incredibly modest budgets.
They were.
And even at the highest end. And then we just determined what were we willing to accept as an integration expense for the business coming together to invest in the rebrand. We also made decisions around what would we do in 2016 versus 2017, what could wait until further down the road, simply to just make it more manageable and scalable.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. We're going to wrap it up. So thank you guys very much. We appreciate you joining us here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.